Hello everyone, I'm Dr. Ujjwala, mentor at StudyMEDIC. Welcome to our YouTube series. Today we are discussing here ovarian and menstrual cycle physiology. This is a high topic for MRCOG Part 1 examination. And at the end, we will be covering SPA related to this topic. So let's begin. We always like to start with a proverb. Success is the sum of small efforts repeated day in and day out. Remember that success doesn't come with a one time hard work. It comes with a consistent daily practice and revision, even if the effort is small. Both ovarian and the menstrual cycle, both the changes occurs simultaneously. And this is the foundation of topic infertility, contraception, and endocrine disorder. If you understand this topic thoroughly, you will be able to solve any clinical scenario related to this topic. So, our today's learning objectives are we are covering here stages of folliculogenesis, oogenesis, phases of menstrual cycle, and hormonal changes, and SPA question practice at the end. So, what is the folliculogenesis? It's defined as the growth and development of ovarian follicle from the earliest resting stage until ovulation. This process starts before birth and continues throughout reproductive life. This has two phases. This is the pre-antral phase and the antral phase. Pre-antral phase, which is gonadotropin independent phase, and the antral phase is the gonadotropin dependent phase. And this cycle takes approximately 375 days and the span around 13 cycles. The follicular growth from the pre-antral to the antral development of the pre-antral follicle till ovulation takes around 90 days. So, the estrogen production occurs in the ovary by two different cell types and two different hormone types. This is called as the two-cell, two-gonadotropic theory. The theca cell is the outer side of the follicle, which responds to LH. This LH acts on the theca cell and convert and start producing androgen and progesterone. Cannot secrete testosterone because they lack 17 beta hydroxysteroid dehydrogenase. While a granulosa cell lies inside the follicle, respond to FSH, and it also contains an enzyme aromatase. Under the influence of FSH, the aromatase androgen to estrogen. This granulosa cell have a FSH receptor and later acquires LH receptor. These are the stages of ovarian follicle development. We will be taking them in a step-wise manner. In primordial follicle, what happens? There is it consists of primary oocyte and it is surrounded by the single layer of the flattened granulosa cell. At 6 months of the gestation, the number of the primordial follicles are 5 to 7 million, which multiplies at birth to become 2 million, and at puberty, they are 300 to 500,000. Out of this, only 500 will ovulate during the reproductive life. In primary follicle, once it becomes the primary follicle, the granulosa cell changes from the flat to the cuboid cell, and then it forms the zona pellucida. FHS receptor develops here, and this stage is independent of gonadotropin. While in secondary follicle, which will occur fifth day of the cycle, this granulosa cell forms the multilayer, and the theca cells are then differentiated into the theca interna and theca externa. And there is a dense capillary network developed between these two layers. What happened in the pre-antral follicle? This is the late stage of the secondary follicle. It contains oocyte, zona pellucida, multiple layers of the granulosa cell, basal lamina, and theca internum and externum. Brachymetallic follicle, which is called as the tertiary or the antral follicle, which is characterized by the fluid filled antrum. There is a corona radiata surrounds the oocyte, which is this follicle is FSH dependent and grow to more than 1 centimeter. It is actively secretes. We may ask question SBA from this. So you just go through all the slides carefully. In pre-ovulatory follicle, there are 5 to 7 follicles enter each cycle. They compete to become dominant. Follicles with fewer FSH receptor undergo atresia. And usually one follicle ovulate and the size at ovulation is 18 to 20 mm. Again, this is SB. And what is oogenesis? Oogenesis is a process by which the mature ova are formed. And this includes three components, that is oocytogenesis, ooidogenesis, and maturation. What happens? The primordial germ cells they form outside the ovary and they migrate from yolk sac to the developing ovary. And here they differentiate it into oogonia. Once the oogonia forms, this is a diploid cell contain 46 chromosomes and they divide by mitosis and at 16 to 20 weeks, oogonia 6 to 7 million. After this stage, no oogonia are formed. Once the oogonia transform into the primary oocyte, they are also diploid cells containing 46 chromosomes. Meiosis begin here at 6 months of the gestation. However, they do not complete the meiosis and are rested at prophase 1. This phase is called as the dictite stage, which is a prolonged resting phase started from the fetal life until ovulation. This is again a SBA. At ovulation, just before ovulation, due to the LA surge, the primary oocyte complete meiosis 1 and results in release of one secondary oocyte and one first polar body. These secondary oocytes, they are haploid in number, contain 23 chromosomes and enter into the meiosis 2. However, again, the meiosis 2 get arrested at metaphase 2. This state completes meiosis 2 only after fertilization with the release of mature ovum and second polar body. Now we'll talk about, as I told you that the menstrual and the ovarian cycle, the event occurs simultaneously. So here I would like to explain you in a simplified way. What happened? There is a pulsatile release of the GnRS occurs from the hypothalamus. This acts on the anterior pituitary gland, release of the gonadotropin. The FSH more than LH because FSH has a low threshold and required for the early recruitment of the follicle. This FSH acts on ovary and required for the follicular growth. This phase is called as the follicular phase. When follicles start developing, they produce estrogen. This estrogen acts on the proliferative phase of the uterine endometrium. This rise of the estrogen initiates negative feedback and suppress the FSH so that the weaker follicles undergo atresia and only the survival of the dominant follicle occurs. This dominant follicle starts producing estrogen. When there is a sustained rise of the estrogen, the positive feedback, the negative feedback switches over to positive feedback, and there is a positive feedback loop occurs where there is a massive LS surge and the small FS surge. This massive LS surge initiates ovulation, this phase is called as the luteal phase. Once ovulation occurs, the graphene follicles get converted into the corpus luteum. Corpus luteum starts producing estrogen, which is the main hormone. This progesterone act on the secretory phase of the uterine endometrium and prepare the endometrium receptive for the implantation. This corpus luteum also produces estrogen and inhibin. All these hormones continues to rise because of the corpus luteum release all the progesterone, estrogen, and inhibin. This not only brings secretory phase on the endometrium but also start inhibiting the GnRH, FSH, and LH. So there is no next follicle, no follicular forming, no LH. If fertilization doesn't occur, the corpus luteum gets degenerate and there is a drop of all the hormones. That is progesterone fall, estrogen inhibiting, and that initiates the menstrual cycle. You must be thinking why sometimes the estrogen is bringing the negative effect than the positive feedback. Always remember estrogen required in a threshold level that if there is a low level of the estrogen that inhibits the GnRH, while the high level of the estrogen stimulates the GnRH. So you can see here ovarian feedback. Just we'll do the recap. What happens? There is a rise in the estrogen during the late follicular phase, which inhibits GnRH, causing the drop in the FSH so that the weaker follicle undergo atrophy and only the dominant follicle can survive. As the estrogen continues to rise, it begins having a stimulatory effect on the GnRH, causing the LH surge. And this LH surge triggers ovulation. Once the corpus luteum release, they release estrogen, progesterone, and inhibin, which inhibit FSH and LH, preventing more follicles from activating and releasing estrogen, which would trigger another LH surge. A corpus luteum, if there is no fertilization, corpus luteum degenerates. The drop in progesterone triggers menstruation. The drop in the estrogen and progesterone inhibin allows the FSH to start rising again to initiate the beginning of the follicular cycle. So that's how the next cycle begins. Now, we'll see the each event that is occur during the cycle. In the menstrual phase, there is a now blood loss which is 50 to 150 ml. Out of it, 80 is the average. This is again an SPA. During this phase, there is a shedding of the functional layer of the endometrium. In proliferative phase, which is under the effect of the estrogen produced by the Graafian follicle. In secretory phase, this phase is under the influence of progesterone, which is secreted by the corpus luteum, which is the main hormone. Along with that, there is a secretion of the estrogen inhibin also. In the endometrium becomes secretory and receptive on relatively constant phase, approximately 14 days. SPA may based on this slide, so you can just go through it because the hormone they might ask which are the changes occur during the ovarian cycle. In day one, we have seen there is a low estrogen and progesterone, and that there is a causes the pulsatile release of the GnRH. This GnRH increases the follicular stimulating hormone. This follicle stimulating hormone stimulates the follicular growth and estrogen secretion. At mid-cycle day 14, there is a sustained high estrogen which inhibits the FSH and triggers the LH surge. This LH surge initiates ovulation. Post-ovulation, corpus luteum secretes progesterone, and this progesterone suppresses LH and FSH, and dominant follicles survive due to the LH response. The hormonal pattern, again the FSH in the intercycle rise before menstruation, before ovulation, and before the follicular growth. LH, there is a gradual rise in the follicular phase. Mid-cycle surge, there is a rapid decline in the luteal phase. Estradiol, the rise till the mid-cycle, then there is a fall after the ovulation, and second peak will be seen in the luteal phase. Progesterone, low in follicular phase, and single peak seen in the luteal phase. What will happen in the ovulation? 2 SPA from the ovulation. There is a ovulations occur 18 hours after the LH peak and 36 to 48 hours after the LH surge. So please remember this. And mid-cycle, during the mid-cycle, when many of the women or girls they complaints of the mid-cycle pain because due to the free fluid in the pouch of the Douglas causes the local peritoneal irritation. So, corpus luteum once it is formed from the ruptured Graafian follicle. This is present during the luteal phase and contains the LH receptor and it secretes progesterone, which is the main hormone, estrogen, and inhibin. What is the fate of the corpus luteum? If fertilization occurs, is maintained by the SCG and persists for 6 months, and the hormonal function replaced by the placenta at third month. If the fertilization doesn't occur, the degenerate into corpus albicans, progesterone fall, and the menstruation begins. What cyclical changes seen in the uterus and the cervix during this phase? And due to the after menstruation, the basal layers remain intact. And due to the excess estrogen, the cell divides rapidly. The glands become elongated and new vessels form. On cervix, there is the increased vascularity, edematous, and the mucus become watery and cleary, and channels form for the passage of sperm. During the secretory phase, which is occur after ovulation, under the influence of the progesterone, there is an increased spiral artery. The gland becomes distended torsus, and the myometrial contraction suppressed due to the implantations of the fertilized embryo. Once on the surface, you will see the edema become reduced, the mucus peak, and the glycoprotein forms the mesh, which enables which doesn't allow the passage of the sperm. Menstruation, there is a corpus luteum. If the fertilization doesn't occur, then corpus luteum get degenerated and all the hormones drop. There is a drop of the progesterone, estrogen, and inhibin, and release of the prostaglandin F2 alpha. This initiates the myometrial contraction so that the arteries become constrict, they then later dilate and bleed. This results in the hypoxia and necrosis and shedding of the functional layer. Let's start the FPS. So, a rapid rise in which hormone is necessary to trigger the ovulation? Options are estrogen, progesterone, follicular stimulating hormone, or human chorionic gonadotropin. The correct answer is estrogen. A rapid rise in the estrogen secreted by the dominant follicle causes a positive feedback on the hypothalamo-pituitary axis. This leads to the LH surge, which directly triggers ovulation. Since LH is not listed among the options, so estrogen is the correct option. Why the other options are incorrect? Because progesterone, there is a rise after ovulation and does not trigger ovulation. Because this shows only a small mid-cycle rise and not the main trigger. HCG maintains corpus luteum in pregnancy and no role in triggering ovulation. Moving forward, which of the following hormone rescues the corpus luteum from luteolysis? The options is luteinizing hormone, human placental lactogen, follicular stimulating hormone, human chorionic gonadotropin. The correct answer is human chorionic gonadotropin. In a non-pregnant cycle, the corpus luteum undergoes luteolysis due to the following LH. In early pregnancy, the sensory trophoblast secretes the SCG, and this SCG acts on the LH, bind to the LH receptor on the corpus luteum, maintain the progesterone secretion, and prevent luteolysis under placental takeover at 8 to 10 weeks. Why it is uh, why the other options are incorrect? Because as we have seen that LH brings a luteolysis. So the human placental lactogen is metabolic role, no luteal support. And what I said, because the follicular, it is a follicular development only. Next is B. When does the LA surge occur during the menstrual cycle? The options are early follicular phase, mid-cycle just before ovulation, luteal phase, and during menstruation. The correct answer is mid-cycle just before ovulation. The LS surge occurs in the mid-cycle, approximately 24 to 36 hours before ovulation, and is triggered by sustained high estrogen level from the dominant follicle. Moving forward, during folliculogenesis, the oocyte is contained within a ball of cells known as which of the following? Options: basal lamina, granulosa cells, theca externa, theca interna, or zona pellucida. The correct answer is granulosa cells, which specifically the cumulus oophorus. This cell maintains oocyte nutrition and communication and accompany the oocyte at ovulation. Cumulus oophorus specialized granulosa cells around the oocyte. The last is SBA. At what stage of meiosis is the oocyte after ovulation? Options: anaphase 1, metaphase 1, metaphase 2, prophase 1 or prophase 2. The answer is metaphase 2. Before ovulation, the oocyte completes meiosis 1, forming a secondary oocyte and the first polar body. After ovulation, the oocyte adheres at metaphase 2 and will only complete meiosis 2 if fertilization occurs. Why others are incorrect? In prophase 1, the primary oocyte is arrested here from fetal life until just before ovulation. Metaphase 1 and metaphase 2, meiosis 1 is complete just before the ovulation, while as prophase 2 does not exist, oocyte arrested at metaphase. So I hope this made you clear, and thank you very much for listening and all the best for your exam. Thank you.